Alright, what's going on, guys? So today we are going to be doing a Oblivion weapon mod tutorial. I'm going to be showing you guys how to make your own custom weapons, texture them, and then get them into Oblivion and be able to play around with them. My last video was a Skyrim armor tutorial, so if you're interested in learning how to make armor mods for Skyrim from scratch, go ahead and go watch that. Just a few days ago, I did a poll deciding on what my next video was going to be. It was going to be between Fallout New Vegas weapon mods, Fallout 4 armor mods, or something completely mod related. And so you guys overwhelmingly voted for Fallout 4 armor mod, so that's what's coming next. After that, I'm probably going to do the Fallout New Vegas weapon mod tutorial. It depends on the interest in it. And then after that, we'll see what happens. As I've said before, I do kind of want to begin branching out into other stuff outside of just solely modding. And I am working on a couple of videos that aren't modding related right now. So hopefully those will be coming out soon, and we'll have something good to show. But beyond that, I just want to hop into it, make this a quick, snappy tutorial because it's a pretty streamlined process. Process can get a little bit funky when we're making the Nifs, just because we're working with the really old versions of Nifs, but we got it. So that all said, let's go ahead and talk about the required tools that we need, because there are some different ones, and get started. Alright, so first things first, let's go over the required tools. We do this every video, so I'm just gonna get it out of the way really quickly. As per always, you guys will need some sort of 3D modeling software like Blender. That's what we'll be using today, and I highly recommend using Blender if you're going to be following around with this tutorial. But if you want to go with like Maya or 3ds Max, that is your choice. Both of those are fine options. It'll just be up to you to figure out exporting and stuff like that. You will also need something like Photoshop or GIMP, some sort of image editing software. You can also use Paint.net, but I don't know if they have the same DDS add-ons. We'll be using Photoshop and or GIMP to convert our textures that we export from Substance Painter to DDS format. There's a DDS plugin for GIMP, and then there's also one for Photoshop as well, and we'll be using Photoshop today. Next thing you're going to need is the NetImmerse / Gamebryo Blender add-on. Comes native with Blender. I'll show you guys how to install that once we get to that point. You guys will also need Nif Scope, as always. We always need Nif Scope so we can mess around with our Nifs. And then for the general stuff, last but not least, you also need Substance Painter or some texturing alternative. We'll be using Substance Painter, but you can also use like Armor Paint, which is only 20 bucks, Quixel, which is free, or Mudbox, which is almost 100 bucks a year, so it's up to you guys. This is not a Blender Basics tutorial, this is not a Substance Painter Basics tutorial, so if you guys are looking for the very beginner stuff for Blender or Substance Painter, I'll be linking some playlists down in the description below where you can go to learn the basics of Blender and Substance Painter, as well as all of the tools that we'll be using today and alternative tools that you can use instead. As for Oblivion modding specifically, we're going to need two things. So you're going to need the BSA commander. This is what we're going to use to extract the Nif files from the game. It's a lot like BAE or the Fallout 3 archive. It does basically the exact same thing. It just works specifically with Oblivion. Next thing you're going to need is the official Oblivion construction set. Again, links to both these things will be in the description. Both Oblivion and Morrowind have a construction set, but it's the exact same thing as the creation kit. It's got a few less features than the creation kit does, but it works basically the same way, so we'll go over how that all works. And then you're also going to need, this goes for Fallout 4, Skyrim, you know, any sort of modding when you have DDS textures, but you're going to need the Intel TextureWorks plugin for Photoshop. I've mentioned in videos before how to install it. Basically, you just go down here, click manual download, and then you just follow the README that comes along with the zip file. It's really easy to do, and it doesn't really take much time at all. So those will be all the tools that you need. Again, links to them are in the description. As well as alternative. I usually do a tutorial document alongside it. I think I'm going to start phasing the tutorial documents out. I'm not sure yet. The last one that I did for the Skyrim armor tutorial got taken down off the Nexus because you need playable mod files if you're uploading stuff to the Nexus, even though it was labeled a modder's resource, so I don't know why it got taken down. They also just add tons of time to my video making process, and I think it'd be a lot faster and a lot simpler if we just stuck with the videos. So there won't be a tutorial document for the Oblivion video today, but again, all the links that you need will be in the description as always. So that said, the first thing that we're going to do is we need the BSA commander. So again, from the link that I put in the description, first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the Nexus page for the BSA commander. You're going to go to Files and then Manual Download. Once you download it, it'll come in a zip. You just unzip it to a folder, and then you just click BSA cmd.exe, and then it should look something like this. So now we're going to go up to Open, and then we're going to find Oblivion meshes.bsa. You can also grab the textures if you want as well after, but I'm just grabbing the meshes here today. This is so we can get reference Nifs of the original weapons that were used in game, you know, their original files, all that sort of stuff. So I'll come back whenever this is done loading. Alright, so once your files have loaded, you're going to go over here and just click uncheck all. And so now, unfortunately, there's no search function, which sucks a little bit, but you can do it by name. So we are looking for, it starts with weapon. It's meshes, then weapons. Weapons here. So it'll go meshes, weapons, and then the type of weapon, and then the weapon itself. So we will be using the ebony weapons, specifically the ebony longsword. However, you can select multiple of these by clicking it, and then holding down Control, and then clicking more, or by clicking it and then holding down Shift, and then selects all of them, and then you can click Check Selected. Doesn't work sometimes, don't know why. You can also just manually check them. So what you're going to do is you're going to just check off the ones that you want to take with you. So I'm going to grab the ebony longsword. You can also grab like the short sword, the war axe. It really just depends on what type of weapon you're making. I highly recommend grabbing a weapon that's similar to the one that you want to make, just so you can get the size down correctly, but it is up to you. So you got those. So now we are going to, once you have them selected, you're going to click unpack, and then, you know, you select the destination of where you want it to go. Then you just click unpack again, and it's done. So I have it set to the BSA commander folder that we downloaded earlier. It's going to be in the out. So meshes, weapons, ebony. There we go. So now that we have our reference Nifs, we are going to be importing them into Blender and then modeling our weapons. So let's go ahead and load up Blender. Alright, so in Blender, the first thing that we're going to need to do is grab the add-on, the NetImmerse and Gamebryo add-on. It comes native with Blender, so you go up to Edit, Preferences, and you'll type in NetImmerse. Then it turns up here, it's Import Export NetImmerse Gamebryo Format Support, and then you'll just click this checkbox here. After you click the checkbox, you can just close this. It'll probably take a second to load it all up, but after you've done that, you're going to go down to the scene setting, and then here where it says Nif Tools Scene Panel, Game, you're going to change this to Oblivion. Where are you? There you are, Oblivion. Alright, cool. And now you can go ahead and import your meshes. So we'll go up to File, Import, Nif. So it has three options. You have the KF, the EGM, and then the Nif. You want the Nif. And then you'll go to wherever you downloaded them from, or wherever you put the vanilla weapons that we just extracted, the vanilla Nifs that we just extracted. Like I said, I have every one of them downloaded. And then we'll go and grab the ebony longsword, and then all you do is just click on it and then click import Nif. There you go. Now you got it in Blender. So you can go ahead and get rid of these capsules here. They're just used for deciding, and also this axis here, these pivot points. They're used in the engine to figure out snapping points and collisions and all that. Really, all we need this in Blender for is just to act as a size reference. So it'll come with 2 pieces, more likely than not. It depends on what weapon you're getting specifically, obviously, but it'll come with 2 pieces. It'll have the scabbard, and it'll also have the longsword, or dagger, or normal sword, or war axe, or whatever it is. If you have a scabbard, if it comes with a scabbard, you're going to want to make a scabbard. If it doesn't, then don't worry about it. Because we'll be using that Nif later to reconstruct it to make it into our own. But now from here, all you have to do is just go ahead and model the weapon that you want to make. I'm not going to be going over the modeling process in this video. Again, it's not a modeling tutorial. It's just like how you'd model anything else. However, there are a couple things that I do want to go over when it does come to modeling your weapon, so I'm going to load up my project. I'll be right back when I do. So here's my project. As you can see here, we got our scabbard, and then we also got our sword, right? And so this is supposed to be kind of like a new like honor blade of coral type deal. Basically, what you'll do is whenever you're modeling your weapon, I want to go over a few things just to keep in mind. So specifically, you want to keep an eye on your triangle count. You don't want it to be too high. To check your triangle count, you go up here to viewport overlays, and then you go down to statistics. You can click this on and off, and I'll show you over here. Try and keep your tri count under 5,000, even lower if you can, just because Oblivion is an old game. It can't handle a lot, so you don't want to throw too much at it. 4,500, that's even a little high for Oblivion, but most modern computers are able to make up the difference, so it's really not too big of a deal. But lower is always better if you can get away with it, and you're able to keep the silhouette of your weapon. But anyways, and then again, your scabbard and your sword itself, or dagger, or whatever you're making, are going to have to be 2 separate meshes. They can't be combined, so keep that in mind. And then also, whenever you're UV unwrapping your meshes, I did not UV unwrap them together, which I should have. It just would have made my life a lot easier. But if you would like to UV unwrap them separately, so they both have their own UVs, like this has its own UVs, and then this has its own UVs, you can. It just makes your life a little bit more difficult, and it's easier if you just UV unwrap them together. However, you don't have to, and I'll show you how to fix it if you do unwrap them separately. But if you can, I highly recommend just unwrapping them together. It'll make your life a lot easier when it comes to the texturing phase and actually building out the Nif. Beyond that, there's not too much more that I really wanted to keep in mind. Just keeping your poly count low, unwrapping the scabbard and the sword together, and that sort of stuff. So, additionally, I also created a high poly mesh, as I normally do. So here's my high poly scabbard, and then here is my high poly sword, right? So the high polys are always used whenever you are texturing in like Substance Painter or something to bake in detail. So we're going to be baking with a high poly today. I'll show you how to do it without a high poly. It's very easy. Now we want to export for Substance Painter or Armor Paint or whatever you're using. Again, we're using Substance Painter today, so we're going to be showing you how to export for Substance Painter. It's pretty easy. So you go up to here, you click on one of your meshes. So we'll do the Honor Blade. Actually, when we're exporting for Substance Painter, there's some things I want you to keep in mind. So if you're modeling your weapon into a bunch of different pieces like I did, so let's hide the scabbard. So I have the blade in its own separate piece, the shaft in its own separate piece, the hilt in its own separate piece, handle, pommel, right? I have them all in their own separate pieces, and then I have them named accordingly. So pommel, hilt, handle, blah 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 blah. And so it's got an export. It's got an underscore LP that stands for low poly, right? And so then we got the same thing up here. We have a matching piece for each one of them, but the high poly version, and then underscore HP. I highly recommend doing this because when you are baking in Substance Painter, let's say for example we're working on baking the blade in Substance Painter, we click bake, and then we'll be able to select, and we'll be able to set it up so Substance Painter will only bake these two objects together, and then it'll bake these two objects, and then it'll bake these two objects, and yada yada yada, you know, going on, so on and so forth. And that's to make it so we don't have clipping issues or artifacting in our textures. So again, name all of your pieces similarly with the suffix underscore LP and then underscore HP accordingly, high poly and low poly. So once you do that, we'll export our low poly first. So we'll be texturing. So when you export your scabbard, if you have your scabbard on a different set of UVs, you can just export it separately. However, if you have it on the same set of UVs, you want to move it over to the side like here, and then also make sure that your high poly is moved on top of it. Oops. Your high poly is moved on top of it, and then we'll export it this way if they are on the same UVs. If they're not, then you just export them. Separately. Let's start with the low poly sword. So low poly sword, we'll grab the whole thing, select a piece of it, and then we'll click File, Export, FBX, and then I have an operator preset. I'll show you how to set it up. So limit to selected objects. We only want the mesh, and then you can turn off bake animation. Just stores extra data that we don't need. And then you can come up here. So whenever you're exporting a Substance Painter or Armor Paint or what have you, click this plus button, and then you can type in, you know, substance, right? And then now you always, so you can just mess this up real quick, go crazy, mess with all the settings, right? But now that we have this preset, every time we go in here, no matter what the settings are, we can just click our Substance Painter preset, and then it automatically sets it back up for us, right? So that's pretty cool. So we'll name this, since this is low poly, we'll name it Honor Blade underscore HP. Save it. And then same thing for our high poly. Grab the whole thing, File, Export, FBX. Again, use our Substance Painter preset. And then name this underscore HP. Now I'm not gonna export this because it's gonna take a lot of time, but you get the idea. But it's the exact same process. So, and now I want to show you guys how to export your final meshes for the Nif, right? So we're going to be exporting these as OBJs and then importing them into Nifscope, right? So before anything, if you have your pieces all separated, like I do mine, you're going to want to make sure that you duplicate them and then combine them all, because we only want to be exporting one mesh here. And then you're going to want to go in here once you have them all combined, and then do Control T, and it'll triangulate all of your faces for you. So whenever you export it, it's not going to conflict in Nifscope or anything like that, because Nifscope does not like squares or rectangles. It only likes triangles. So you're going to want to make sure you triangulate your faces. Same thing with the your scabbard over here. You're going to want to triangulate the faces on that as well. So to export it, going to go ahead and click on it. We're going to be exporting these separately. We're going to have Honor Blade. So File, Export, and then Wavefront OBJ. And so I already have my exports here, but we can go ahead and get rid of these real quick. We'll just name it Honor Blade. And then limit to selection only, and then click Export. And then same thing for the scabbard. File, Export, OBJ, and then going to give the same name, but SCB scabbard. And export. Alright, and then again, we'll be using those OBJs whenever we are building out our Nif in Nifscope. So with that all said and done, and our Substance Painter exports done as well, let's go ahead and hop into Substance Painter and get this baby textured real quick. Alright, so once you're in Substance Painter, gonna go up to File, New, Document Resolution for Oblivion. I don't recommend having like 2K or 4K textures. the engine can't handle it, and they honestly just kind of look off with Oblivion's Play-Doh-esque graphics, which, don't get me wrong, they're charming, but I highly recommend keeping them at, 1024 or 512. Mine are at 512 because they look better with Oblivion, but it is completely up to you. So I'm going to set, even though I'm going to be exporting at 512, I'm going to set the project to 1024 just so I can build them out in 1024 and see how they look, and then we can later scale them down. That's fine. So once you have your document resolution set, go over here to File, Select, and then you will find your sword LP. Now, if you exported them together, they'll all be in this one, but I have them exported separately, my scabbard and my sword exported separately. So if you did that and they're on two different UV maps, you'll have to texture them and make two different project files. But if you exported them together, then they're right here. So click Open, then click OK. Alright, so now we got it in here. So now we're going to go up to Bake. So if you're baking without a high poly, all you have to do, you turn off ID, turn on height, bent normals. So if you're baking without a high poly mesh, all you have to do is go over down here to match, click by mesh name, and then just click bake. Now I recommend baking with a high poly just because it always looks much better, but if you didn't make a high poly for some reason, then I mean this works for you. However, if you did make a high poly, let's show you how to do that. So we'll go over here to high definition meshes and click on our high poly mesh, click open. Now you should see like this big wireframe cage over your mesh. I would scale down the max frontal distance as low as it goes before you start getting like this red artifacting. Right there seems about good. Yeah, that seems fine. So we'll go with that. That's just to make sure that we're not like getting artifacts and it's not like over baking onto separate pieces and stuff, or pieces aren't baking onto themselves, because that can be kind of annoying sometimes. But anyways, so now down here, we're going to be changing this to the suffix that we created in Blender. So our low poly suffix is _LP, and then high poly is _HP. So now if we go over here by matching by mesh name, you see that they all match up correctly, which is good. So now you want to make sure that you have the normal, world space normal, ambient occlusion, curvature, position, thickness, height, and bent normals all selected. And then if you want to use anti-aliasing, you can. You don't really need it for Oblivion stuff, and it just kind of makes your bake run a lot longer. But if you like the way that anti-aliasing looks on your textures and on your bake, go ahead. It's your world. You do whatever you'd like. But I'm gonna leave it off. And then my output size, I'm just going with 1024. I feel like that's fine for Oblivion standards, and then we'll just go with like bake. All right, so now that they're done, we can see that we got all sorts of detail in here from our high poly, which is pretty cool. And yeah, it looks good. We got all the detail that we sculpted into our high poly. So now you can go ahead and start texturing. And again, this isn't a Substance Painter texturing tutorial, and there's not really a lot of comments that I want to make on the texturing. So quickly, I'm going to show you guys how to export your textures using a custom output template, and then we will convert them to a DDS, get our folder structure set up our Nifs, and then get the sword in game. So this is my project file here. This is the sword in its complete. It's not going to look exactly like this in game, as you'll see, and you can never really get it to look exactly in Substance Painter as it'll look in Oblivion, just because it's not really made for that. You're probably going to have to go back and forth and tweak it a bunch. Eyeballing this, I mean, this looks pretty good to me. So we're going to go ahead and export this and get this in game. So we'll go up to File, and then Export Textures. So first we're going to make an output template. You can just, I already have mine here, but we'll just create another one real quick. Click the plus button, double click it, Oblivion 2. Alright, so the first things first, we're going to want to make the texture for the diffuse map. So you'll go over here to RGB plus A. Then you will go ahead and drag in the base color onto the RGB channels. Also, get rid of all that and then click this $sign here and then do texture set. This will make so when you export your textures, this here will make sure it names it exactly what the name of your material or texture is in Substance Painter when it exports. So that's really handy. And then we're going to go over here to opacity from our input maps and drag it onto the alpha and put it into the gray channel. So what this is doing is it's taking our base color from our mesh here, it's taking our base color and putting it in the color channels, the RG and B channels. And then we're taking our opacity and we're putting it on our alpha. So the alpha channel will help decide, like, if you have like translucent textures on your mesh, this is where that comes from. It's taking the opacity from your alpha channel and applying it in game. So then next we're going to be making our normal. So you're going to do RGB plus A again, get rid of all this, $sign texture set, and then we'll just underscore N. So for the RGB, we're going to go over here to converted maps, grab normal DirectX, throw that onto RGB channels. All right, and then for the alpha, again, we're going to want to go down. This is going to sound a bit weird, but bear with me. We're going to go over here to the converted maps and grab the glossiness, drag this onto the alpha channel, and then put it in the gray channel. So what this is doing is it's converting a DirectX normal map to our RGB. So the game will read this, and that's how we get like our bump mapping and stuff in game. And then on the alpha, the reason we put our glossiness in there is because Oblivion's engine uses the transparency of your normal map to determine glossiness and like how glossy an area is of a texture. So by putting the glossiness into our grayscale, our glossiness map will act as an alpha, so the blacks will become transparent and the whites will become non-transparent, and so that's a pretty cool way of getting like roughness and like glossiness shift. And so then we're gonna go over here to just a normal RGB map. Again, change it to texture set. Oops. And then underscore S. This is our specular map. This determines, you don't need a specular map for all your meshes. All a specular map really determines is what color the reflections are that are caused by your glossiness on your normal map, and the glossiness that's applied to the texture or to the Nif in game. They do a little, your specular map does a little bit more than that, but that's pretty much all it does. So, but anyways, if you want a specular map, and I recommend just adding it to the output template. You can always just toss it out afterwards. Go over here to converted maps, grab specular, throw it onto RGB channels, and then this is your export template. So once you have that finished, we're gonna go up to settings. We have the name of our texture here, right? So Honor Blade, if you want to change the name of this, so save settings. If you want to change the name of this, you go over here to your texture set settings, and then you can change the name over here by double clicking on it. And so this is the name that it'll export as. Remember the $sign texture set? That'll be changed to Honor Blade for this. So file, export textures. I'm going to be exporting them as 512. You can export them as literally anything, but again, recommend 1024 or 512. Then we click on the location where we want them to go. Then we're going to click on our output template. So here's my normal Oblivion one, here's Oblivion 2. And just click export. Alright, and if you made your scabbard separately, it's just the same thing. You can use the same output template for it, works great. But now we're going to go ahead and we are going to convert our textures to a DDS. Alright, so for this part of the tutorial, you're going to want the Photoshop Intel DDS plugin. Again, you can download it from the link in the description and then just follow the README. It's literally just dragging and dropping some files into a folder. It's pretty easy to install. But once you have that installed, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the textures that you exported from Substance Painter. Again, I have two sets. I have the Honor Scabbard and I have the Honor Blade normal textures here. So you can go ahead and grab these and then just drag them all in. So once you have once you have the plugin installed, and this goes the same for GIMP, you just Control S Shift to save it. I would save it into a different folder. So I have my DDS folder here. Save as type Intel TextureWorks.dds. Click save. And let's click yes. I've already exported these before. This is why it's acting like that. So for the compression, you're going to want to go with BC3 8BPP linear. Oblivion uses DirectX 9, and this supports DirectX 5 and above. You don't want to go with any of the rest of these because this only supports DirectX 10 and above, and this only DirectX 11 and above. So you have to go with BC3 8BPP linear, right? And then for bitmaps, you want to auto-generate them as always. And then since we're going to be using this for all three, go up here and click save, type in Oblivion. This is creating a preset, so you can just easily click these settings, Oblivion, and then click OK. Alright, and then we just do this for the rest of these. If you have separate texture maps for your scabbard as well, you'll go ahead and do the same thing on all three of those. But once you have those done, we're going to go ahead and set up our folder structure. So go into your Oblivion data folder, and then you're going to want to open up the meshes folder and the textures folder. So in meshes, you can see I already have mine, but we're going to create a new one. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it, name it the name of your mod. So mine's Honor Blade. Honor Blade. And I'm just going to add a tutorial on the end of it. And the same thing in textures. New folder. Honor Blade tutorial. So for the textures folder that you just created, double click it and then grab the textures that we just exported as a DDS a second ago. Copy them and then paste them right in. So now we got our textures in there, so we won't have to worry about that later. So for meshes, double click on the new folder that you just created. And then go ahead and find, because now we're going to be setting up our Nif. So go ahead and find the vanilla Nif that we extracted or unpacked earlier from the BSA commander. So mine's the ebony longsword. I'm just going to copy it and paste it into my meshes folder. Then I'm going to rename it Honor Blade. Oops, Honor Blade. And so this is going to be the Nif that we use. So go ahead and double click on it. And let's go ahead and set up our new Nif. So when you open it up, you're going to have your ebony or sword or whatever you use as your reference. So the first thing we're going to get in is the weapon. Now you might not have a scabbard on your weapon, and if you don't, you can skip half the latter half of this. But I do have a scabbard, so we're going to also be going into how to add in the scabbard as well. But first we need to go ahead and put in our weapon. So click the drop down for the 9 node. Should look something like this. And so now we have scabbard and longsword. You're going to click on the sword itself so you can determine where its tri-strips are. So we've got NI tri-strips here, right? Take note of this number 17. Go back and click on your 09 node. Click File, Import OBJ. Click OK. And then click Honor Blade. You know, the OBJ for your weapon that we exported from Blender earlier, and then click Open. Alright. So now you should have your tri-strips, which is your normal weapon, and then we have a tri-shape. This is how we know the difference. So, our tri-shape, open it up. This is what we just imported from our OBJ. And so now you're trying to look for NI tri-shape data, right? This holds the actual mesh information. Take note of the number for the NI tri-shape data. Mine's 23. So you click on the tri-strips that holds the vanilla Nif. Click the drop down for it and then click the tri-strips. So down here in the block details where it says data, you'll double click on this and then you'll change it to the number of your NI tri-shape data that we just imported. So now you should be seeing your weapon here. It's gonna have the vanilla textures on it. Don't worry about that right now. We'll get this switched out. But now this 19 NI tri-strips data that just got booted out. You can go ahead and do Control Delete and just get rid of it. And the same thing for the NI tri-shape. You can just Control Delete and get rid of it. So now under the NI tri-strips, we got a couple things. We got our NI material property. So we'll double click this and change it to the name of your weapon. We'll just change it to Honor Blade. And then down here where it says source texture, we'll go ahead and find wherever we put our textures. So my textures are in data, meshes, and so then it's just going to be textures, Honor Blade tutorial, and then Honor Blade. So we'll type that in. Textures, Honor Blade tutorial, and then there we go. Okay, so now we got our textures on it. Sweet. Cool. So then the next thing we got to do is get our scabbard in here. So it's the same thing as before. We go up here, click on our 9 node, 0 9 node, file, import, obj, click OK, and then we'll click scabbard and click OK. Warning, blah, blah, blah. If this shows up, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Click OK. Open up your 9 node. So now we got a new 20 tri-shape data. Alright, so with your new NI tri-shape that was just imported, again, open it up and then take note of the number that's next to it. It's again 23. It's 23 now because it got changed. So the original one that we imported, this one, got changed to 19 after we brought it into our new tri-strip. So it freed up number 23. So now this is number 23. But anyways, so then we we find the 9 node for your scabbard, open that up, and then open up the tri-strips data, the tri-strips for your scabbard. Click on it, go down to data, double click it, and then type in 23, because that's the number of your new one. So now you can click this, delete it, and then delete that, and boom, you are good to go. So now we got all of our meshes in here, right? And so one thing that you're noticing though is that if you again, if you combined your scabbard and your weapon onto one texture map, this is fine, you're done. But if you have two separate textures, we're gonna need to do this a little bit differently. So we need to create a new material property and new texturing and new NI source texture for the new material. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the scabbard, we're going to go ahead and right click on the NI material property in the scabbard under the NI tri-strips, then go to block and duplicate. So now we have a new one. It's 20 NI material property. And then we're going to duplicate the NI texturing property and the NI source texture. Alright, so on the new texturing property that you just opened up, click on it, then click, then down block details, click base texture, double click on it, and then give it, and then type in the number of the new NI source texture that you just created. So mine's 22. Alright, and so now take note of the two new things that you made. So the NI texturing property, that's number 21, and then the NI material property, that's number 20. We can double click this, oops. double click this and change it to like scabbard. And so now we're gonna go up to the NI tri-strips, click on it for the scabbard. Then in the block details, we have a properties tab, click on that. And so then we have our original two here. So we have number 13, number 14. This is our original one for each. Double click on that and just get rid of those two numbers and it kicks them out. So now our scabbard has its own set of material and texturing properties, and our weapon has its own set of material and texturing properties. So now all you have to do is go into your scabbard, open up the texturing property, and then for the file name of the source texture, just type in the scabbard's texture name. Boom, and now it's working. So this is good to go. This is ready. Except one thing, I do need to move the scabbard back. So we'll just click on it, click right click, transform, edit, and then we'll just move this back a touch. Yeah, that looks good. And then click OK, or accept. All right, cool. Now this is done. Now you can do Control S to save it. So now we got some tangents and bit tangents arrays are mismatched. So click OK on that. So to fix that, you won't always get that, but to fix that, you're going to open up your NI tri-strips, click on the tri-strips data, or tri-shape data, and then next to, down in the block details, next to normals, tangents, and bit tangents, so there's these little green circles. Just click each one of those. And then you'll do the same thing with the scabbard. Alright, now save it again, and you're good. So now you can close Nif scope. And now that we have that finished, we are going to finally go ahead and open up the Oblivion construction set and get started on creating the actual add-on that will be used in game. So once you got the construction set open, you're going to go up to File, Data, double click on Oblivion.esm, and then also any DLC that you need or want to be required. And then just click OK and wait for it to load. Alright, so once you're in the construction set, you'll go ahead and find, go into your object window, then click on the weapon tab, and then you'll want to find the weapon that you used as a reference. So mine's the ebony longsword. Unfortunately, you don't use the arena version. Use the WEP version. So this is WEP ebony longsword. Double click on it. Fortunately, the construction set, since it's old, it doesn't have the search function like the creation kit does. So that kind of sucks, but it's whatever. So for WEP, for the ID, you'll change it to WEP, and then the name of your weapon, honor blade, and then the name, honor blade. Alright, and here's where you can change the type and all that if you want to. You can also give it an enchantment if you want to. You can also change the weight of it, its health. This is for like the durability of it, how much damage it does, its reach, its speed, its value, all that fun stuff. But those are all up to you to do. You can also identify it as a quest item, so when the character picks it up, they can't drop it from their inventory. Again, that's up to you if you want to do that. It doesn't really matter, but you can also change the icon for it here. This is the path for the icon. I'm not going to be changing the icon, but you can, if you want to make an icon for your weapon, you're welcome to do that. I'm not going to in this tutorial. We're just going to keep it the normal one because I think it looks fine. But here's where we change the Nif. This is the important bit. So click on it, find the Nif that we just edited, click open, and then click OK. So when it asks you to create a new form, you click yes. Right, so now we need to find the honor blade again. There we go, here it is. So because Oblivion doesn't have any way of you creating the weapon or spawning it in game or anything like that, we're gonna have to find a spot to spawn it in. So let's go ahead and just put it in the Broom of Mages. Actually, I don't really recommend putting it in like an area where people own a bunch of stuff, because it can get flagged as like stolen when a character picks it up, unless you want it to be like an item that you have to steal. That's up to you. But just kind of find a place to put it that will be easy for you to find, or wherever it's going to work for your mod. If you're creating this for like a quest mod or something like that, it's up to you. You can also write scripts to have it added into a player's inventory, or like given to you by somebody. I don't really know how to do all that, and we're not going to go over that in this tutorial, so we're just going to place it somewhere for now. Let's put it in the Skingrad Mages. Here's the Skingrad Mages Guild. This table over here. So you can literally, oh Jesus. Alright, there we go. Now it's working. So you can drag it in, double click on it, and we'll just try and put this on the ground over here. You usually want to try and put it on like a table or something, so NPCs don't like kick it around and shit, because they will. They're annoying. That's a little bit too low. Don't really want it clipping. Okay, and then you just click OK. Alright, and so now it's in the world, and so we can go find it. So we'll just click File, or just click the Save button over here. Do Honor Blade Tutorial. Alright, now we can go ahead and load up Oblivion. Alright, so here we are in the Skingrad Mages Guild. Gotta go ahead and find our weapon. Should be right there. You are, right up these stairs. Oh, that's not something I gotta steal. I walked outside just so we get a better look at it, but now we have it in game, and I think it looks pretty nice. We even got the scabbard working, right? So put it in the scabbard, take it out of the scabbard.
Looks like you're handy with a blade.
I am handy with a blade. This blade. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So that is how you get your weapon in game. And so obviously you're probably going to have to go back and forth between texturing and like re-exporting the textures and getting them to like look nice and exactly how you want them in game. I spent probably a total of like 5 or 6 hours just making small tweaks to them, exporting them, getting them in game, testing them out, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, all said and done, the sword works good. You can go ahead and go test it out on somebody. Alright, so we found a homeless guy. Let's kill him with it.
Am I a joke to you?
See, it works pretty good. But yeah, so this is the final product. I am really happy with the result of it. I think it came out pretty nicely. Modding Oblivion can be a little bit funky. There's not a lot of support when it comes to modding Oblivion, and it can be a little bit weird sometimes. So if your mod isn't working, or you're just running into like weird bugs, I highly recommend checking out the Oblivion modding subreddit. The folks there are really helpful, or the forums page on the Nexus. Both of those are very, very good for getting support when you really can't find it anywhere else, and answering very specific questions that you have. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching. My next video will be the Fallout 4 armor mod tutorial. Then after that, I might do Fallout New Vegas weapons, or something unrelated to modding. I haven't really decided yet. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Bye.